Pleasure to have you here. Nigeria's political landscape witnessed another dramatic twist as the Court of Appeal stepped into halt the deregistration of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, and 4 other political parties, delivering what many opposition figures have described as a major victory for democracy and political pluralism ahead of the 2027 general elections.
At the Court of Appeal became seized of the jurisdiction in that matter to the exclusion of the Federal High Court. So the Federal High Court has no jurisdiction to have sat over the matter and delivered the judgment that it delivered. And the Court of Appeal, in its own wisdom, granted an order staying execution of that judgment.
These have gone round the 36 states of Nigeria, conducted primary elections, spent money, wasted resources, and then some faceless people who come and say they are, what do they call them? Former legislators who have failed this country, that we are trying to fix this country. Democracy is about inclusion.
The ruling comes just days after a Federal High Court judgment ordered the INEC to deregister the ADC, Action Alliance, Action People's Party, Accord Party, and Zenith Labour Party. That decision immediately sparked outrage across the political spectrum, with opposition leaders warning that the judgment could significantly narrow Nigeria's democratic space and weaken alternative political voices before the next election cycle. In an unanimous decision delivered by a 3-member panel of the Court of Appeal in Abuja, the Appellate Court ordered an immediate stay of execution of the Federal High Court judgment. More importantly, the appellate judge strongly criticized the lower court for proceeding with the delivery of its judgment, despite an earlier order directing to it suspend further action in the matter. The appeal court described the action as a serious violation of judicial hierarchy and constitutional procedure. The judges stressed that lower courts are bound by decisions and directives from higher courts and cannot disregard such orders at will. The court warned that failure to respect judicial hierarchy threatens the integrity of Nigeria's legal system and undermines public confidence in the administration of justice. The controversy began when the National Forum of Former Legislators approached the Federal High Court, seeking an order compelling INEC to deregister the 5 political parties. The group argued that the parties failed to meet constitutional electoral performance threshold and therefore should not remain on the register of political parties eligible to participate in future elections. Justice Peter Lifu of the Federal High Court granted the request and directed INEC to proceed with the deregistration process. However, the ruling immediately triggered legal challenges from the affected parties, who argued that the judgment was flawed and violated existing court orders. During proceedings before the Court of Appeal, INEC itself backed the request for a stay of execution. The Electoral Commission informed the Appellate Court that it was not notified by the delivery of the Federal High Court judgments and only became aware of it through media reports. INEC's position surprised many political observers because the Commission effectively aligned itself with the affected parties in challenging the implementation of the ruling. The Commission maintained that it had not been properly informed about the judgment and supported efforts to suspend its enforcement pending the determination of the substantive appeal. Lawyers representing the ADC argued that allowing the deregistration order to stand will create confusion and uncertainty across the country's political system, particularly as preparations for future elections continue. They warned that implementing such a judgment could disrupt electoral activities and potentially trigger a constitutional crisis. The Appellate Court appeared persuaded by those arguments, emphasizing that preserving stability and maintaining respect for legal processes were paramount considerations. Consequently, the judges ordered that the judgment remain suspended while the appeal proceeds through the courts. For the ADC and its supporters, the decision represents a significant relief. The party had described the Federal High Court judgment as a direct attack on opposition politics and a dangerous attempt to weaken democratic competition ahead of 2027. Prominent political figures quickly welcomed the Court of Appeal's intervention. Many argue that the ruling protects the rights of millions of Nigerians who support alternative political parties and reinforces the principles that political competition should be determined by voters rather than court orders. The legal battle, however, is far from over. Separate disputes continue within the ADC itself. On the same day, Justice Peter Lifu declined requests to rescue himself from another case involving the party's leadership structure. The judge rejected allegations of bias and ordered accelerated hearing of the disputes concerning the legality of the Senator David Mark-led leadership of the party. That internal leadership battle remains a critical issue for the ADC as it seeks to strengthen its position ahead of the 2027 elections. Former party officials are challenging the current leadership arrangements and asking the court to nullify actions taken under the present structures. Despite those internal disagreements, opposition figures have largely united in opposing efforts to deregister political parties. Many argue that Nigerian democracy benefits from a competitive multi-party system where citizens have genuine choices at the ballot box. Several political leaders warn that attempts to reduce the number of viable opposition parties could fuel political tension and undermine confidence in the electoral process. They insist that democracy thrives when multiple voices and perspectives are allowed to compete freely. The Court of Appeal's decision has therefore become more than a legal victory for 5 political parties. It is now being viewed as a broader test of Nigerian democratic institutions and their ability to protect political freedoms. As preparation for the 2027 elections gradually gathered momentum, the outcome of this legal battle could have major implications for the country's political future. Whether the parties ultimately survive the deregistration challenge will be determined by the subsequent court proceedings. But for now, the appeal court has ensured that they remain part of Nigeria's political landscape. What happens next will be closely watched by politicians, legal experts, civil society organizations, and millions of Nigerians who are eager to see how the court balance constitutional requirements with the principles of democratic participation and political inclusion. Do you believe political parties should be deregistered for poor electoral performance? Or should voters alone decide their future at the ballot box? Share your views in the comments and join the conversation below. I'm Chidera Eso. Bye for now.